So we got busy, not profitable, and you just can't figure out why. How can that be the case? The harder we work, the further behind we get. Every time we get a new job, we're adding more chaos to a broken system. Now, once again, I'm not actually a fly on the wall in your shop. If you're too busy to fix estimating and scheduling or installation systems, you're building on sand. Running a business with broken systems, is like putting more work cycles on a damaged gear. Don't slay the dragon. Go and find the dragon's eggs. Hey, welcome to the show. I want to remind you that you can't scale chaos. You might be thinking about growing your business and you're wondering why it's not moving in the direction you want. And it's because you have broken systems. There's a lot of chaos, maybe too much drama, and you just can't scale chaos. Today, I'm going to show you how to deal with that. So by the end of the show, you're going to have right in front of you a tool you can use. You don't need anything fancy, a pen, piece of paper, cup of coffee, and you'll be able to get this solved. This is all fixable, by the way. All of it's fixable, which is the good news. But there's a hidden cost of being too busy to fix the process. And if you get stuck at any point in this story, if you got a question, I won't leave you hanging. Just send me a text message, okay? But let's start with a case study. Pretend I'm a fly on the wall. See if this is the case for any of you out there. Your shop is always busy, and your hair always on fire. And the biggest jobs, you're winning the biggest jobs from the coolest GC on the greatest projects. But no matter what, your shop is busy and you simply aren't making a dime, right? So you're busy, but you're not profitable. And it's to the point where it almost doesn't make sense to own the company anymore, right? So we got busy, not profitable, and you just can't figure out why. How can that be the case? The harder we work, the further behind we get. You need to hire more people, but you can't afford them. Let me take another guess here. Your time is eaten up because you're doing everything at the shop. Of course, you're not as efficient as you can be. And on top of that, you're home late for dinner. The kids don't see you enough, and your wife's getting frustrated. Now, that might not be the case for everybody, but for some of you, that probably hits home a little too hard. And by the way, like I said, stay tuned. I've got a solution for you. By the end of the episode, you're going to know exactly what to do with that fancy pen and a single piece of paper. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Now, that doesn't apply to all of you. Let me give you a second case, like a second scenario that we see here. You've got frustrated and angry customers, and it's starting to affect your Google reviews, and your guys are getting stressed. You're pushing them to work harder, of course. And then orders keep coming down to the shop floor. So engineering and drafting, they think they're doing a great job, but there's a problem with the job package, and people can't find the parts list. On top of that, we don't have a clear system on how to reorder product. On top of that, the purchaser doesn't know when we're almost out of product. And on top of that, your supplier needs 3 weeks to get anything delivered. So, of course, you're mad at them and they're frustrated with you. And on top of that, the sales team keeps making promises to customers. Now, look, I know we can't shut the company down, but every time we get a new job, we're adding more chaos to a broken system. Now, once again, I'm not actually a fly on the wall in your shop. I've just had this conversation hundreds of times, and it's solvable. I mean, that's the good news here. If there's anything to take away, this is solvable. Chaos is not the answer. You need simple systems to fix that chaos. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to start to solve it today. But join me for a second. Let's take a step back. And I wonder if you've ever heard this story before. Maybe you've heard this story and you've seen what happens when it doesn't get taken care of. And hold on to your hats, because I don't think you're going to expect the stories I'm going to share. Some of you are old enough to remember the TV show I Love Lucy. You guys remember that? Does anybody remember the chocolate factory scene? Right? We're talking about you can't scale chaos. And I want to talk about the chocolate factory scene from I Love Lucy. So to set it up for you, Lucy and Ethel take jobs at a candy factory. And their job is simple. They got to wrap chocolates moving down a conveyor belt. At first, totally manageable until the belt speeds up. And they panic, right? They're stuffing chocolates in their mouths and their hats and their blouses to keep up. It's a very funny episode. But the big takeaway is that belt is your business. The chocolates are the jobs. And when the speed increases, more work, more customers, more clients, more deadlines, and your system isn't ready, chaos hits. You don't get better, you just get, buried. The takeaway on that is you can't fix a broken system by working faster or working harder or seeing your family less. You actually fix it by slowing it all down and fixing that conveyor belt, right? Now, that's one good example, but a lot of you out there aren't as old as me, so you've never even heard of I Love Lucy or the Chocolate Factory episode. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's hilarious. But here's one you might have heard your preacher tell on a Sunday. It's the parable of the wise and foolish builders. So the theme of this is that foundation determines your future, right? One man builds on rock and one man builds on sand. Now a storm hits and a storm hits both of them, but only one stands, right? And your sales growth in that case study I was talking about before is the storm. If you're too busy to fix estimating and scheduling or installation systems, you're building on sand. And the faster you sell, the more promises you make, the faster it all washes away. And that leaves you stressed and frustrated and, breaking promises to your wife and kids. I never want to see that happen. The lesson on that is the systems are the rock in your business. Here's another one. I'll do one more. I had to explain this to my son when the truck was making a funny noise. Now, you got to picture the truck. It's my son is driving our 2001 Suzuki Vitara. Now, I use it as my hunting rig, and I'll bet a bunch of you out there have something pretty similar. And I love this thing, but I also don't care if it gets scratched. I've had entire moose and elk folded up in the back, so that thing's been there for me a ton of times. I actually like it when it gets scratched. But there was a really bad shake coming from the truck, and my son didn't want to cause a problem. He thought it was okay to keep driving it. But you guys, some of you already know what's up. The harmonic balancer was off. And you know better than me what that means. The wobble goes up, the engine and all the part, everything starts to heat up, right? The stress is now going to shift to the stronger parts, and we've got a cog, a wheel that's wonky, and pretty soon that whole engine just blows up with my son in the truck, right? That would be the worst case. It blows up while my son is driving. Maybe he's hurt or stuck. Of course, we can't ignore the second worst part of that story is me explaining that to my wife, but we'll leave that for another episode for a podcast I don't run. But anyways, running a business with broken systems, is like putting more work cycles on a damaged gear. It doesn't fail right away. It grinds itself to death slowly, right? Where, the gear is your processes, estimating, scheduling, installs, and things like that. The gear train is your company. And the friction and the heat, wasted time, rework. How many of us have seen unnecessary rework and just the stress that goes along with it? Heck, we build cabinets and millwork, some of the most beautiful stuff in the world, things we're proud of. Why is there so much stress in getting those finished? And of course, the catastrophic failure is burnout or a cash crunch or, your key people quitting. In the military, they use a term and it's called a force multiplier. Some of you have heard of it, I'm sure. It's something that makes a team more powerful than their numbers would suggest. Sometimes it's better gear, sometimes it's strategy, but most often it's a strong leader. 10 soldiers with the right leader can beat 50 without one. And your shop's no different. Without leadership, you've just got a bunch of bodies swinging hammers and sweeping the floor. But with a trained foreman, your crew becomes a unit, a solid unit that gets the job done right the first time. That's how the military stacks the odds in its favor every single time. And that's what Foreman 101 is. It's leadership training for the people who multiply your results, your foremen, your supervisors. Think about this for a second. If you had a well-trained foreman, I'll bet you could finally make it home for dinner on time, right? Because your force multiplier is your foreman, and your foreman's tool is leadership training. Get on the wait list for the next free info session. Just text me at 206-208-7581 and say foreman training. We'll get you on the list. So now you're saying, okay, Dom, you're right. I think my business is in chaos. Even, I want to grow and I want to be profitable and I want to have a life. So where do I start? Because, buddy, you promised me you're going to help me solve this. Well, just like the conveyor belt, right? Or the harmonic balancer story, you got to slow things down. You got to slow things down and fix what's broken, right? That's the critical part here. Slow things down and fix what's broken. You can't scale chaos. You don't want it. If you scale chaos, guess what you get? More chaos. You're just manufacturing chaos. We don't want to manufacture chaos. We want to manufacture predictability. Join me for a second. Just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. That feeling of confidence you've got if you just did that with me. And if you haven't, do it now. Nobody's watching. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Nice deep breath. How can you not feel stronger and more confident after having done that? That's what we want to introduce into the business, that feeling of confidence, slowing it all down and being in control. You got to slow things down and fix what's broken, right? And what you have to do is actually fix the first bad thing that's broken so that you can fix the second bad thing that's broken. And then you can fix the third bad thing that's broken. And the fourth bad thing never happens. Right? So believe it or not, you can solve this problem with, wait for it, you're never going to imagine what my answer is. You can solve this problem with question marks. You guys know I like to goof around, but I'm actually serious. I'm going to show you how to solve this problem with question marks. You'll also need that pen I was talking about and a piece of paper and hopefully a hot cup of coffee, right? Now, hopefully you're shaking your head right now. You're like, come on, Rubino. What do you mean I could solve this with question marks? But I want you to think about the biggest, hairiest, ugliest problem your company faces, right? Think about that. And you know what it is because it happened to you today, maybe twice today, 3 times this week. It's something that happens all the time and you deal with it all the time. What I want you to do is leave the shop. Just bring a blank piece of paper and a pen with you. Go and sit in a nice coffee shop. Face the corner, put in your headphones like I've got in, listen to some nice music, and then write down that problem, but I want you to write it at a very specific place. I want you to write it at the bottom of that piece of paper, right at the bottom. And I'll tell you why, because we're going to start to use those question marks as tools. Those are your weapons, the question marks. So you write that problem at the bottom, and then I just want you to ask yourself the question, why? Just above the problem, ask yourself the question, why? And then all you got to do, my friend, is answer that question. Now, you're not going to believe it, but the second thing you do is ask yourself the question again, just above that, and then answer that question. And keep doing that. Do it 4 or 5 times. And you're going to find the basic problem you got to attack. Here's an example for you, right? So the drawer was built the wrong size. I'll use something simple like that, but it happens to so many of us, right? The drawer was built the wrong size. You're like, we just wasted all the materials all the time. The flow of the shop is off, right? So why? Well, the cut list had the wrong dimensions. So you write that down just above it. The cut list had the wrong dimensions. Then you ask yourself the extremely wise question, why? Your question marks come out and you write down the salesperson didn't update the change. You ask yourself that wise question just above it, which is why? Why is because we don't have a system for version control. You write that down, you think about it for a second, pick up your coffee and you have a sip, you look out the window and you think, this is a nice coffee shop. I should come here more often. Then you turn back to the page and you think, you scratch your beard and you say, why don't we have a system for version control? And you write down this: no one is responsible for job updates. You see, we used question marks as our weapons to attack the basic problem. In this case, I chose something pretty simple that but all of us have seen this. A drawer was built to the wrong size. But why? Right? Do that exercise in itself, but also do it for the biggest, hairiest, ugliest problem in your business. And you'll find the same output. At the end of it all, asking why 4, maybe 5 times, you're going to get to what we call the root cause. Go fix that. That's the thing that you want to fix. You ever heard the dragon's egg story? You guys are going to like this one. You'll probably even be able to tell it to your kids when you get home on time. You're sitting there for dinner, maybe taking them to baseball practice or whatever. So there's this knight, and he's known far and wide. You know, a knight, like he's got the sword and the shield and all that stuff. He's known far and wide as the greatest dragon slayer in the world. He slays dragons. As a matter of fact, he slays dragons every single day. One day there's an orphanage being attacked, and so he rushes over there right away, and he sees the dragon out front. He takes out his sword and drops his visor. It's a blazing hot day, but he gets in there because he's got to save the kids in the orphanage. And he gets out there and he fights the dragon, and he fights that dragon to the death. It exhausts him. And so he takes a break under the tree nearby. Well, the kids, of course, at the orphanage are super happy about this. So they come out and they bring him water, they bring him wine, and they bring him some food. And one of the kids comes up and says, "Oh, kind knight, thank you so much for saving us." And the knight looks at the little kid and goes, "I got kids the same age. I haven't even seen them in days. A week, 10 days. I've just been out here slaying dragons." This nice little kid comes up and brings me food. And the kid says, "Mr. Knight, can I ask you a question?" And the knight says, "Yes, of course," because not only is he strong, he's wise, right? And the kid says, "I noticed you're very, very good at killing dragons, but I was out in the forest the other day and I found a whole nest full of eggs. Do you want me to show you where it is?" You see where I'm going with that? Don't slay the dragon. Go and find the dragon's eggs. Go and find the dragon's eggs. You can make an omelet out of those bad boys, right? The question marks are your weapons. They're your sharp weapons. That's going to get you to the root cause of the issue. So I've promised you a couple times today that I'm going to solve that problem for you. And we just did, right? We've solved that problem. You can't scale chaos. You don't want to scale chaos. Go find those dragon's eggs. Use question marks as your weapons. Slow down to speed up. And for God's sake, go grab yourself a coffee, a nice coffee, and enjoy yourself. As a matter of fact, you guys have heard me say this before. If you want, I'll buy your coffee for you. And I'd love to be there with you in Chattanooga or Chicago, wherever you are, but probably not going to happen this week. But if you want me to buy your coffee for you and be there in spirit, then do this. Use your cell phone and take a selfie of you with your coffee working on that piece of paper. And if you send it to me, just text it to me, I'll send you $5. I'll send you some sort of gift card that you can apply to your coffee or whatever you want. But I'm really committed to this. I want you to do these things. The answer is in front of you. You cannot go home tonight after listening to this episode and say, how come nobody's out there helping me when I'm at my neediest, when I actually need the help? I'm trying to reach out. I am trying. What I'm doing now is I'm saying, not only will I help you, I'll buy your coffee for you, right? Just text me. You guys know my cell phone number, right? 315-903-7853. Just send me a text with a picture and I'll know what to do from there. Anyways, thank you very much for checking in. I hope you appreciate this. As you can tell, I'm a pretty, personable guy. This whole episode, one day this will be better when you and I get a chance to have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee across the table from each other. I look forward to that. Thanks for checking in.